silver lining is in society coming back together and to not look to government for answers. That they're not going to take care of their people. I think that the care has to come from each other and to hip each other to what's going on. And I think there needs to be sort of a renaissance or like a revolution of love.
Your organization has achieved a significant dent in vaccine mandates.
We didn't do the science. We didn't do the clinical trials. We didn't do the post-safety. But one thing we know it's rare.
Hello, I'm Michelle Evans, Texans for Vaccine Choice, and I am here with Drea DeMatteo, who many people might recognize from The Sopranos and various other movies, TV shows. And we literally met, I think, 4 days ago, something like that, and immediately got her scheduled for this podcast. And I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit better. So you and I met recently in LA, of all places, for me to be. But we were both at the premiere of Follow the Silence. So first of all, I want to kind of get your take on the documentary. You, I guess, watched it at the same time that we all did.
Yeah, I was sick for a few days before. That was my first outing after being laid up. And I almost didn't go because I knew that I knew I'd be sitting in the theater crying the whole time. And of course I was. I packed my bag filled with tissues, and I was just like, oh, and just trying to hold back the tears gives you even a bigger headache. So I definitely was trying. I absolutely love Mickey Willis and his wife, Nadia. I can't believe the heroic lengths they've gone to sort of just educate people for free. I feel like what's happening in the world right now, because of this, atrocious bioweapon, and then, create the problem and then give them the solution, which was even, more destructive. Obviously, we saw that in the film. But just seeing what's being born out of it. I'm sure, I'm always trying to find the silver lining in any situation. There aren't too many silver linings when you're, giving your arm to, big pharma, and then they take your soul. So, we have to look forward, even though right now I think we're about to really take a huge step back. And this film is probably the only film out there, I would say, that is going to sort of show a fraction of how many people have been affected by the vaccine and by COVID, and just the entire pandemic, as Mickey Willis would put it. And then the filmmaker that he hired that he brought on to make the film, I don't know his last name. I think his name is Matt. He was
Matthew Guthrie. Yes,
he was so charming on stage, listening to the Q&A. I fell in love with him. I have a feeling that there's just going to be a lot more of these films coming out to sort of just help people understand. Because, my friends don't understand. All my friends in New York that are triple vaxxed, and they're fine and they're healthy, maybe a few little health things here and there, but they would never attribute it to the vaccine. The world deserves to know the freaking truth. I'm an Italian. I can say freaking, right? Like,
yeah,
freaking. Whether it affected you or not. It wasn't a one size fits all. Nothing ever is. The whole vaccine schedule was never a one size fits all. You know that. And we all act as if it is because we're compliant. I don't even know what it is. I don't know. I think about how I just so readily handed my kids over. I never wanted to vaccinate them, but my ex wanted them vaccinated, and it was just so much easier to just go along. Not because of him. We could have fought that out, and I probably could have won that argument. But it was just like, he wants them vaccinated. The schools are not. It was just such a But then when you're up to like vaccine 24, you're like, this isn't what I don't think this is what I signed up for. Like, how are we here? And I think I explained to you when I met you, my kids were in 2 different states. So the vaccine card would say, well, there's no DTaP or TDAP or whatever. And I'd be like, it's like, well, he can't go to school. And I'm like, all right, well, is it dangerous if you do it again? Probably not. No, it's fine. Okay, then do it again. And so now my kids are double vaccinated for a lot of things. So when people came out calling me an anti-vaxxer when all of the COVID stuff broke, I was like, slow down. I mean, and don't call Kennedy one either. Like, let's try to, again, not a one size fits all. It's just the labeling of the ages that we have. That's definitely, I mean, all of these crazy things have happened throughout the past, but the labeling has never really been so strong.
Yeah. Well, let's step back a little bit because, well, first of all, how old are your kids?
My daughter's 17 and my son is 14.
Oh, wow.
And they're filled to the brim with metals and toxins and everything.
And so back, I guess, let's rewind to like 2020. You were active in your career as an actor. Where were you living and what kind of environment was it during the pandemic at the early stages?
I mean, it was the same everywhere. I mean, maybe in Texas. Yeah. I mean, I feel like in Texas it was crazy too.
Yeah, for a few months, yeah.
I mean, you guys had, more freedom fighters there, I would say. Here it was like people were lining up to find the Kool-Aid if they couldn't, if it didn't end up on their doorstep, they were actively, where is it? I need that Kool-Aid so that I can put on my sheep suit and become the most compliant. Oh my God, I can't believe how I was wiping down my FedEx and my groceries.
The groceries.
I mean, we were a part of the whole thing. We were as afraid as everybody else. I took care of my family's housekeeper and my nanny when I was growing up. I have taken care of her since I was 20. And she was living with us at the time. Well, she's passed. She's always lived with me. But she didn't pass from COVID, thank God. But although they probably would have liked to have put that on her death certificate, they probably did. But we kept her super protected because she was immunocompromised. She had a heart transplant. And when the narrative was anyone who's immunocompromised should be vaccinated, I was like, but I wouldn't vaccinate her. And I have not given her a flu shot. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer. And I wouldn't vaccinate her. I would never put something in her body that is not tested a bazillion times over. And we know nothing about it. And she already takes so many drugs that suppress her immune system. So I'm like, what if this is something that could further suppress her immune system, which we know now it is. I mean, we all suspected that with a lot of other vaccines, but I never really went into that rabbit hole because luckily my kids had issues, but they didn't have major issues. They had insane allergies at different times and stuff like that, but nothing that I needed to really focus on. So I didn't. But I was living in my house that I lived in for 20 years. I wasn't a super active working actor at my age, at 50 at that time, or 49 or whatever it was. The jobs come. I make enough money to support myself. I never cared about a career, so it wasn't that big a deal for me to leave it behind, but it was a big deal for me to not be able to support my family. That was huge. I knew I could I won't take jobs in a different state. I won't travel for work. I have to be with my kids 24/7. I'm a single mom. That's the way I want it. I could have, put more pressure on the dad to be like, no, you got to be home so I can go work. The way most actresses would probably like to be. I don't give a shit about my industry and I don't like it. I just do it as a means to an end. I do it to put food on the table. It's what I know how to do and that's it. I don't know how to do anything else. I could go work in a bookstore. Like, I like books. That's something that would interest me. I could go be, I could work the reception area at a veterinary's office, at a vet's office. I love animals, but you couldn't do anything without a barcode. So I couldn't even go visit my mom in New York because New York was based on barcodes only. Like, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't go into a restaurant. You couldn't get into a hotel. I knew that they were starting to try to implement some type of it sounds so drastic, but like a new world order. They were trying to implement some type of biometric system. And I just knew, I was like, okay, now this is all the things that, these are all the things that sci-fi movies are made of. So, or China or whatever. So I just knew that the vaccine was a way to control people. I also knew that if I did it, or if one of my kids did it, I already saw in my mind's eye that one of us wasn't going to make it through. So whatever that idea was, and whatever that tap on the shoulder was that kept saying to me, you absolutely can't let anyone in this house have that vaccine. You can't. And it was just my intuition, the voices in my head. And everybody thought I was insane, and they told me I was insane, the same way they're telling people who got the shot, who felt that way, who are deathly ill, like the people in the film Follow the Silence. Those were the same voices running through their heads, and they didn't listen. So I have a very, the reason why I was there at the film, I'm not vaccine injured, but I have such I feel very tightly attached to the injured and to it, because I knew that I would have been one of them. Mm-hmm. And I knew what I had to give up to stand my ground. And I was losing my home. And that everybody knows, like anybody who knows my story at this point knows that I said, F it, I'll lose the house. I'll sell the house. And I couldn't sell the house. I pulled myself out of Hollywood. No one got rid of me. I wasn't fired. I wasn't working on a production, although I was working on a production in Canada that I was recurring on, and it was paying all my bills. It was enough money to get by. And, in LA, and you live in a nice house, and your bills are not like everybody else's bills. They're ridiculous. They're embarrassing, the bills. And I'm not like one of these kind of like starlets. So I'm just like, I have to do a lot to just get by. And I couldn't do anything anymore. And everyone that I knew that was close to me kind of was like, well, all you have to do is get vaccinated and everything can go back to normal again. Like, why won't you just do it? And aside from which, you are putting other people at risk. And I just couldn't take the story anymore. I locked myself in my house, and I basically never came out again until I couldn't sell the house because nobody wanted to move into California. They just wanted to move out. I mean, you might have been here. That's how you ended up in Texas. But everybody that I didn't know the freedom fighter people that were like, we're leaving. I was on a mountain by myself, just like, so anyway, I had to do some crazy stuff to get by. It's not really crazy. Some people might say it's crazy if they don't really understand that the OnlyFans platform can just be a fan page, and which mine is, but that's what I did. That's what I did. And I was like, you know what, man, this is a political statement. This is not, people wanted to like really tear. I was never in the press. Like I really was never a real press whore in the acting business. Like I just don't care about the industry. Like I said, I care about my children. And then when I did that to save my house, I became like this. All of a sudden my life changed overnight. My life changed overnight over the pandemic. And, had I complied, it probably would have just went back to the status quo, like most people's lives did. Although I would beg to differ and think, people's lives never really went back to normal. My life never went back to normal after 9/11. After I watched that building fall down and just understanding what I understood from that event, my life was never the same. I felt like our freedoms were completely our freedoms were always being dismantled in certain ways that we just never really knew about. But that was a real visual. You know, that was it. Like whenever the kids look at the Freedom Tower in New York, they're like, look, Mama, it's the anti-Freedom Tower. I'm like, that's my kids, because our freedom was taken away that day.
Yeah.
Just more greed and control. And they were able to do a lot of things after 9/11 that helped facilitate the setup of this entire pandemic and vaccine psychosis. But so yeah, I did a lot of crazy things, and it was sort of a political statement. And now my life is completely different now because I got pushed out into the press. I did have to defend myself.
How did that happen?
Because I joined the OnlyFans thing. We were going to do a political podcast on OnlyFans because I knew I wouldn't be censored there. So I thought, let's do it there. We'll put it behind a paywall, and no one can say anything, and I can talk about politics all day. Because I don't like actors talking about politics. They might be the most annoying people on the planet, and musicians. But the way I see it now was there wasn't one person on our side of things that was doing it in our world, maybe just Roseanne. And I know a lot of like Democrats won't listen to her at this point, even though she's a Democrat, because she's been very loud and vocal about a lot of things. And my approach was really different about it, even though I'm not much different than she is, because we're both out of our minds in the best way. And she's, she's older, I just had a different voice, and I was like, someone's got to do this. Someone's got to do it. I mean, I can't believe that all of the Democrats, and I was a lifelong liberal, even though I never voted for anybody because I always believed it was a uniparty, but my sensibilities lied in full liberalism, but not in the way that it looks now. It was more, I guess, libertarian than anything else. But once I had to defend my position on the OnlyFans thing with one press, it was one article. I said I'd give one interview. I gave it to Fox, and that went crazy. It went explosive. I didn't do the podcast. I ended up putting a picture of myself up in a bikini, and that was it. The bikini picture, and it was a placeholder. And I look at Robbie, my boyfriend, and we're watching the OnlyFans site. We're watching where the money comes in for your page. And it's just going and going and going. And we're watching. And every 15 minutes, he'll come up, where are we now? Where are we now? Where are we now? And I'm like, I think we're close to being able to pay Compass. Compass Real Estate helped us with a piece of money to pay back, to fix the house up because my house flooded. Everything happened at once. When I said no to the vaccine and the house flooded, I had to go move my mom out of her house. I come back here. The house is like 6 feet deep into the walls of water from a refrigerator that Sears hooked up and left the hose running while I was out of town. My assistant left, and the whole thing was flooded. My girlfriend walks in. She's like, and I'm in New York moving my mother. She's like, your whole house is flooded. I never dealt with insurance in my life. I didn't know that I had 50 different insurance policies that I wasn't even using, that I was paying for, and I had no coverage. So everything was this storm of me living in this bubble of being this actress and just being like, oh my God, like, oh, my insurance is paid. Like I didn't know what was about to happen. Everything came crashing down. Boom. I lost the woman who raised me, who was like my mom, Monkey. My mom, I had to move my mom out of our childhood house that we all loved. That was the only place we all got together because she needed the money for her caregiver. Everything was, I can't tell you how the pressure on us, but all I would do was focus on all the frontline workers that couldn't go back to work after they were heroes on television. Heroes on TV all day, every station, them dancing, singing, all of this stuff in these hospitals. Meanwhile, we find out later, and then Mickey's next film will probably deal with it. But, once we get into why people were really dying in the hospital, people are going to be really flipped out. Some had comorbidities, died of COVID, but a lot died from basically malpractice at this point, and intentional malpractice, not by the nurses and the doctors that were administering stuff, but by the powers that be that put those drugs in there for their use and eliminating all the other drugs like ivermectin and hydroxy and all the stuff. Then when Trump said hydroxychloroquine, everyone's like, bleach. No, it wasn't bleach. But anyway, back to I digress like a madman, and then sometimes I find my way back, and sometimes I don't. I forgot where I was, but yeah, I basically I was able to save my home.
Yeah,
and once I did that, and once I was out there saying that I didn't take the vaccine, now everybody was interested in what else I had to say about it. And it was a runaway train. And it was no longer about OnlyFans and how could I have done that. Although they wanted to, sort of sensationalize that a little bit and call me desperate and all of these things, like that I was a desperate actress or whatever. But I was like, I am, and everyone's telling me, own it, just own this. And, celebrate the fact that you have a great body at 50. I'm like, this is not why I did what I did. I did what I did because I was desperate. And I hope that no one else is in my position where they are ever, and again, thinking about these people who don't have the opportunity to sell a house like this or to put themselves on OnlyFans and sell pictures of themselves in bikinis, like a frontline worker or, nurses, firemen, military. So I was livid about that. And I was like, you know what? I'll just stay here. You want to talk to me? You want to do press? I'll do press. I'll talk to everybody. I will talk to everybody and I will defend every single person who said no to that vaccine that has no voice. And now I'll defend everybody who took the vaccine and, ended up in a bad situation. And that's why I was there that day, representing a little girl that oh my God, this kid, her name is Lindy Ayers. My boyfriend Robbie was posting on Veterans Day a year ago, maybe, this young girl in all camouflage and like all this stuff. And I saw the video going by, well, who's that? And he said, this is my buddy's little sister. She took a shot, the military, her second shot. After that, a week later, she couldn't walk anymore. And she needs to have special care, but there's no real care for her. They keep telling her she's crazy. So I read the post that her brother had made for her. And I reposted it. And I asked him if I could talk to her because she didn't know that there was she didn't know there was a community out there of injured people. And she felt super alone. And we have this dialogue going back and forth in voice note because she could barely write. She's too tired. And to hear her little voice every day that I was going back and forth with her, and I'd wait to listen with my kids because she could have been one of my kids, is the way I see it. She's 20, I think she was 26 when she was injured. This kid was jumping out of airplanes in Afghanistan, like, into the water. And, one of these, it just made me so crazy. And she needs like $50,000 for specific care that the military won't pay for. They say she just has long COVID, and her husband had to take a leave of absence to care for her. So he's not really earning anything. I'm sure that there's something there, but this has been going on since before Trump was in office and before Kennedy. But after watching that film and hearing Q&A and watching the progress of what's been happening since the election, I don't really know how much leverage anybody will have when it comes to these vaccines. I think the only leverage that we might have is if everybody in the world says we're not going to take it anymore. Not just America, but everyone in the world says enough is enough. Let's get back to nature. You guys are trying to kill us. So this kid, Lindy, had started a GoFundMe. I put it up on Instagram and it got taken down it wasn't taken down. It was flagged and not visible because they're saying that I was talking about partying. I don't know what part of that post sounded like I don't know. But I then went after Instagram and all of them, and I kept adding like Instagram and Zuckerberg and Meta and all these things. And they finally unblocked that one post, but I couldn't believe that they were going to try to keep her from even raising money to get care from American people. Like, that's not okay. Like, you don't want to pay for it, even though the DOD and all of you animals have as much friggin' money as God knows what. But you're going to block this child of America, in my eyes, a hero. She took a shot for the country. She didn't want to take the second one, but they told her she'd be dishonorably discharged. And, again, like I guess I saw my kid in her, my own daughter, my son. And so that's why I was at the movie the other night. She couldn't be there. I went there. And also I am a huge fan of Mickey's, and I joke around now. It's like, I can't believe I live in a world where people like Axl Rose and like Paul McCartney or Neil Young, like these are not the people that are like, oh my God, I can't believe I get to meet this person. Now the rock stars to me are Mickey Willis, Tucker Carlson, I'm like, oh my God, I get to listen to her speak today. Like, who am I want to listen to like Sherry Tenpenny and Catherine Austin Fitz. And like, these are my heroes now.
Yeah. I'll still take Axl Rose, but yes.
Well, you know what? He was beating a piñata of Trump on stage. So
I know.
Too much anger, man.
Speaking of that, like how you talked about how you kind of identified as this old school liberal, like more live and let live, kind of libertarian-ish. Has that changed at all? Are you optimistic with Trump and RFK, or are you feeling kind of defeated in any way?
I actually I've taken myself out of the news for the past 3 weeks. I don't know what the newest advancements are in everything. But where I left off, it felt like, let's give them this to give the illusion of mobility, advancements. We're appeasing the primal mind of the right with ending wokeism, exposing some fraud. But at the same time, the whole thing can't be dismantled. There are things within even USAID that might be necessary. I'm not saying, this is another thing. It's like the way they divide the people of America is like, they just keep making new pies and further dividing each pie. So now you have conservatives that now don't even like each other. Now it just keeps, it's crazy. And all the different tiers of people who care about the truth. And then they don't even like each other now because they're like, well, I care about more truth than you care about. Like, everybody's on this like mission to know the most. And it's like, why? It's just going to change. The needle's going to move. It's going to change. The information's going to change. I'd like to believe, like I wanted, and I love the MAGA movement. I understand why it exists. You can understand why any movement would exist when people feel suppressed and held down and lied to for so long. But whether, I don't believe all of the crazy BS that the Democrats say about anything at this point, but they are going to have certain truths on certain topics, and they're going to be demonized for those truths because now everything they said is sort of discreditable. Like everything they say is like, you're crazy, you're just crazy. But some things they're saying are going to be on the money, and we're not going to be able to discern that now because everybody's so busy infighting. about everything. I mean, now we have Republicans in Congress voting for anti-speech, for anti-Semitic speech. You can't do that. You can't have it both ways. You have to be, and it's not real anti-Semitism for the most part. I mean, these are people that are speaking out against the war in Israel. That should be allowed. You're allowed to have an opinion. Like, who's to say that you can't have an opinion on something? Because you're just doing the same thing, right all over again. So now there's a debanking thing put in place over hate speech. I don't think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's that pendulum swing that we experience every time there's a shift.
Yeah, I mean, if someone wants to burn an American flag, hey man, I don't approve. I don't think it's cool, but you're entitled to your right to do what you want to do. I don't like it, but if you're going to throw someone in jail for that now, and you're going to make this a whole thing, I mean, and then someone's calling you, a dictator and this and that, like, I would say pick your battles here. Like, pick your battles so that your side of the sidewalk is super clean all day long for both parties, because they got crazy people on both sides, the extremist thing on both sides. I feel like they need to ride stuff down the middle. But I also think, I don't know if the JFK papers came out yesterday. Is that true?
They did. I did not have a chance to look at them.
Listen,
so I don't know.
Neither of us looked at them and we haven't heard anything today. My bet is they didn't tell us in those papers. And the same people that were involved in that were involved with his brother. And they're not going to talk about that. And they're not going to talk about 9/11. They're not going to give you the truth about Epstein. Until they have full transparency there, and they find a way to gracefully let the American people know without causing chaos, because it could cause chaos, to let people know with a soft hand, you've been lied to for a very long time and we'd like to clean it up. But Doge memes, the Doge memes are memes. They're memes. They're fun. I post them. I dig it. I get off on it. But when someone really talks about, so what's really going on here? Mm-hmm. I don't know. I want to be hopeful. I really do. I am trying to be hopeful. And, when I saw Trump at I don't know where he was, at the NASCAR maybe, or walking.
Daytona.
I literally start crying. And I'm a Kennedy girl. I was not Trump. I love Trump because I'm a New Yorker and I just love his way. I am not I don't understand my New York friends that don't get his demeanor. I'm like, what happened? What? You guys are tough? You're afraid of this guy? He's anti-abortion, this, he's not even that. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. The states should deal with it. I mean, if they do any research, that was sort of, their hero wanted that as well. It's been spoken about forever, but giving it to the states, everything should be given to the states, the way I see it now. And if you don't like the state you're living in, then leave. Because I think that giving the federal government that much control, there's still, whether or not this federal government, even though they're saying they're going to dismantle it and they're going to have full transparency, we all know we're not run by the federal government. We're run by some deep state, crazy people that we've never seen, people that we will never know who the hell they are. It is the great wizard, like Mickey Willis says, behind the curtain. It's not even the Bill Gates and it's not even the Klaus Schwab, even though those are the foot soldiers and those are the people we can, they will infiltrate the cabinets, as he said. If evil infiltrates the cabinets. And they have. And they managed to take over the world with COVID.
You mentioned earlier you like to look for the silver lining. So what's it been for you? What's the silver lining been for you since 2020, 2021, since that Fox interview?
Well, I think I probably didn't finish that thought, so that's good because you brought me all the way around. We saw the movie, and when you see Brienne, right, when she talks about it, the way I see it is they are the silver lining, and their love for one another, and just when I see anything, this is where I become like a a sap on something like Instagram. When I see any kind of act of love, anything, whether it is, somebody helping somebody across the street, or I don't know, it can really just be anything with animals, with humans, with the elderly, with children, just any tiny acts of love or huge ones. That's the silver lining. And I think that we've gotten so far from that. With all of this, I mean, look, it's fun to make fun of certain people and have a good time. And, I feel like comedians don't have to be PC. I feel like the woke thing was a disaster. I feel like they took things that we thought were important, that we fought for, that were completely shrouded in love of humanity. And they turned it on its back and made sort of this distorted thing out of it all. Like, just even the whole trans thing. And like, what about people that really are trans? Not this trend of 80,000 kids thinking that they don't know who they are now and they want to have hormone therapy. I'm not talking about these kids and their parents are like, sure, why not? That stuff to me is like, what? Wait a second. So your kid comes to you, they're 12 years old. They don't feel comfortable in their skin because they're going through puberty. I am dealing with a 14-year-old now. And if he came to me and said, Mom, I don't feel comfortable in my skin, I'm going to need to do a little bit of heroin. You going to give me some heroin? Because I was a drug addict growing up. So I understand what it's like to not be comfortable in one's skin. I didn't even know if I wanted to be a boy or a girl myself. I joke around I was the first they, them before there was a they, them. I was like one day a boy, one day a girl. But had I gone all the way to try to make sure that I switched sexes at that age, not having a developed brain yet fully, I would have never forgiven my parents ever for allowing me to do anything to myself that would have physically altered me. So the silver lining, again, back to this is how I just end up in 50,000 different places, is the love factor. And, all the things that we were fighting for as liberals, in my world, because I grew up a liberal family, super Italian family where they are super conservative. They're not liberal. My parents broke out of that whole system because my mom was an artist. My dad followed what she wanted because she was so unbelievably intelligent, and like he was not going to stand in her way at all. And he became, they were super Democrats. They wouldn't have recognized the Democratic Party, I think, had they lived to see what was happening. So all these sort of crusades, civil rights, women's rights, you can't tell me that women's rights still exist and cry about abortion when you don't give a shit if your daughter is uncomfortable with a boy in the bathroom with her. You don't get it both ways. And so all of this sort of, how everything just sort of became flip-flopped and crossed over, and mass confusion, which is how they control people and how you kind of dismantle society. It's a controlled demolition of the morale of society. Forget about the controlled demolition of all of the cities that was happening in the last few years. In those ways, I see silver linings as far as Trump being in there, and maybe some more law and order, even though the Democrats don't think that law and order is a good idea. And that's unfortunate because I feel like they've really lost their way in terms of what really truly is important. But I think that the only thing that can carry us through all of the changes that are going to happen right now, or the changes that appear to be happening, that's the thing. I don't know that I trust any of it yet. I don't know who does. I mean, some people do. I think people that are like are really,
optimistic,
red hat wearing, make America great again, MAGA. Like, who doesn't want to make your country great again? I want to make the world great again. But, and I know a lot of that sometimes starts with America because we've been sort of a beacon, but really, have we been? We've been doing nothing but destroying other nations and other people and each other since World War II, really. So, and probably even before that. But the silver lining is in society coming back together and to not look to government for answers. That they're not going to take care of their people. I think that the care has to come from each other and to hip each other to what's going on. And I think there needs to be sort of a renaissance or like a revolution of love. And people think that I'm like a white supremacist because I wear a red hat or because I voted for Trump in the end when Kennedy left to get absorbed. But it's like, no. People think ultra free is like some white nationalist thing. Like my boyfriend, when he started the company with me, he left his band. Like they all started saying all kinds of weird shit about him. And it's like, no, man, we're trying to make being a hippie cool again. We're the real hippies. We mean it.
Yeah.
Punk rockers, hippies, we mean it. Like you can't just, rage for the machine if you're a band that says rage against the machine. Like that's not it. We're going to do that. Ultra Free is going to do that. So.
Well, that's a good way to wrap this up, because where can people find you and support you?
Ultra Free. That's
okay.
That's our brand. We have oh gee, I'm all
Is that the AR necklace?
Yeah, the little AK. This is our protection collection.
Oh, okay.
We were supposed to have crosses and all these other things too, but right now we only have the guns, and I'm sorry. Oh, we have nameplates too, so that you know who you are. In case you forget who you are, look down, remember who you are. Don't let them tell you who you are. You know who you are. And I think that's the silver lining too. People have to have more confidence again.
Yeah. Be bold.
Yeah, people are afraid. So I get it. I was afraid too.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, kind of just threw you into this after talking to you for all of 10 minutes, but I appreciate you being here and telling your story. And I meant what I said when I met you on Saturday. We're just moms. We don't have much to lose. It wasn't like I was going to lose. Well, it wasn't like I was going to lose a career. It wasn't like I was going to lose income. I wasn't at risk of losing my house for saying the things that I say. But when you have that kind of looming over your head, it can be very, very heavy. So from all the moms that we represent as an organization, all the parents in Texas, again, thank you for, moving the conversation forward.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. But you know what? You guys are. You guys can get debanked. That's they were doing it in Canada to people that were just driving trucks.
Yep.
And we know that. So don't underestimate the fact that, my platform, it doesn't matter. I was afraid before I started being outspoken that I was going to get everything taken away just for not having a barcode. And that is where I think that they want to take us. And I am afraid that they'll use Trump to execute what they wanted to execute. And I don't know how much pushback he's going to be able to give when it comes to biometrics and all of that. I mean, see who he's paired up with, the whole thing behind him. And that is worrisome. So moms too, it's everybody. And it's not just actors. I'm already, they already got me. But anyhow, I will start a podcast and I will never stop talking because I never stop talking. I'll probably do it in September, but you guys can find me at Drea DeMatteo on Instagram. I'm shadow banned, so sometimes you can't. Some days I'm blocked, some days I'm not. And I'm on Twitter too. I'm trying to build up the Twitter more, but I'm not on it that much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely meeting you and talking to you.
Thank you for listening to the Shot Callers podcast. Please, if you found value in this content, rate us and share the podcast with a friend. It's a great way to get the message out and to empower everyone to make informed decisions. Until next time, never forget, we are the Shot Callers.